So hello, this is Cattle Rabbit Scale Model Studios. This is a lovely cup of tea and my name's Rob. And in this video we're going to be painting Orc skin or Orruk skin, as they do like to be called these days, with only 3 paints. Now you could do this in 2 colours and end up with something very similar to this, which is a great tabletop plus kind of scheme. It demands a little bit of patience, but it is well worth it. And it's pretty easy to do. I'll also show you how to make them look a bit more piggy using the snivelling kind of flesh tones around their mouths. We're going to be using this mini, so let's just dive in. Okay, so I've got my orc. I've kind of built it in sub-assemblies. I do talk about sub-assemblies all the time when I do painting videos. I've left things like the head and the hands off just to make it a little bit easier and to show you guys what I'm doing. However, I will be painting them up at exactly the same time as I do everything else in this video, so you will need to kind of do that. Obviously, I'm just going to leave stuff off because it's just so much easier to work around this stuff, and I feel that I get a better finish when I do sub-assemblies. So what we're going to do first is we need to kind of prime our model. Now, Death Guard Green or Death Rattle Green from Colourforge is a really good choice here. We want a mid-tone colour. I'm going to be using this Sunset Yellow from Colourforge. It's a fantastic, it's almost Avalanche Sunset from Citadel, because I've got yellow parts and I've already done tutorials on yellow. So this is what it does look like. Other ones that you can use, which won't really affect too much depending on your colour scheme. Obviously I'm doing Iron Suns, lots of yellow. Use Xandri Dust or Mechanical Standard Grey are also really good choices. For the sake of this video, as you can see I'm pointing to, I will be using a wet palette, as I do find you end up with a smoother finish with your paint. But if you're not, you will need to add a little bit of water to your paints when doing this. Now the colours we are going to use is Elysian Green. It's this lovely kind of, almost like, it's got a hint of yellow in. It's a bit of a sickly green, if you will, but it gives a really lovely bright finish. Biel Tan Green, this is a wash again. We are then going to be moving back to Elysian Green, and I'm going to tell you the importance of this step when we get to it. And then finally Ogryn Camo. We're going to mix it together with a little bit of Elysian Green to make some highlights, and it's just going to elevate your model. Then I am going to move on to the face again, which I will be painting at exactly the same time as the rest of the skin, and then I'm going to show you how I do like the fleshy bits around the mouth. Again, I like my orcs to look a little bit piggy, like you can see here. So I like to kind of, add that kind of lighter skin around the mouth. Just makes them feel a little bit more, I don't know, brutish, orcish, snotty, I think is a really good word. But what we're going to do first is obviously Elysian Green. Now, depending on what your choice of colours were, if you're using something like Death Guard Green, Death Rattle Green, you won't need as many coats of this. Because I'm using a yellow, you will need to do a couple of coats. So just take your time with this. Make sure that your paint isn't too watery. The consistency of milk is a really good way of knowing if your paint is watered down. If you are using a wet palette, obviously you cheat a little bit because the palette does it for you. 2 coats later, that's what we're left with. And that's exactly what we want, a really good, solid, strong base coat. Now, next up is Biel Tan Green. Now, sometimes you might notice, and this is a little hobby tip here, when you put a wash on, it dries and some of the deeper parts in the recesses can look a little bit shiny. That's because you haven't shaken it enough. So really shake your washes for a good minute or so to make sure it's all mixed up and together. The application here, exactly the same. I'm just going to get a bog standard brush, nothing fancy, and I'm just going to paint it all over the miniature. What we're doing here is to make sure that it runs in between like the grooves of the muscles, but doesn't puddle up anywhere. If you do put too much on, you can dry your brush off, put your brush on that puddle, and it will soak the wash back up. After about 10 minutes or so, it will start to dry and it can leave like watermarks. So just be aware of that. You might need to work a little bit quickly, but it will obviously take a little bit longer to dry. Here you can see that obviously the wash is on, the model's completely dry, and we're moving back to Elysian Green. Now, the sake of this, and I think this is something that is really worth talking about, is a lot of the time we see base colour, wash, highlight. If you reapply your base colour over your wash, it's going to help you build up a bit of a natural blend. And this is a really good hack when painting, and it's a really, really good habit to get into if you're looking to push stuff, you know, up the tabletop plus, you know, end of the spectrum. I've always considered myself the average painter, just that maybe I've got a lot of patience for doing things. I'm no different to anyone else, you know, I'm no slouch with a brush. Am I a good painter? Well, you know, that's completely down to, you know, subjective conjecture, if you will. However, I do find steps like this just help elevate a model or a miniature just that little bit further. Take your time, work around all the muscles, and then you can see that I'm halfway done here. Obviously, his left side is done and the back, but the right side isn't. So I'm just going to finish my way round, just leaving that Biel Tan in the recesses, highlighting those muscles. This is what we're left with. Now, you could stop here. If you didn't want to do this step, I'm going to show you a little way of cheating here. Get a dry brush, and I will link in description below some videos that might be relevant to this one. This is an Artify. It's got a lovely soft bristle to it. If not, cheap makeup brushes make excellent dry brushes. And all I'm going to do, a little bit of Elysian Green, and then what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to take some of the excess off, and then using my wet palette, I just want to add a little bit of moisture to the bristles. This will stop you getting that chalky effect. So I'm actually using my wet palette there as a little bit of a, almost like a tissue to kind of remove the excess. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to start flicking it back and forth across the muscles. Obviously, this will be, if you didn't want to do the last step, take your time with this and build your colours up gently. You might need to do a couple of passes, but what this will do is it will blend your Elysian Green and your edges in, and it will give you a much softer natural finish to the muscles. And that's exactly what we want. We don't want hard lines, you know, where we've re-highlighted, and that's what we're left with. Again, it might be a little bit subtle, my camera might be a little bit awful to pick it up with, but trust me, it's there. Check out my community tab or some of my shorts. I posted some of these guys already, and you can just see it just makes a bit of a difference. And I do find when you're looking to move into like tabletop plus realms, those little details and those little bits of extra patience is what's going to push it that little bit further. Next up, we are going to get our Ogryn Camo, and for this we are going to start highlighting. Now I'm going to mix this, and as you can see, I've just got just the end of a paintbrush worth of Elysian Green, and then I'm going to do the same. This Ogryn Camo, in actual fact, a little bit knackered. For some reason, I've got a habit of my paints drying out now, even though the lids are always closed. You know, it's probably twice as much Ogryn Camo as you are using Elysian Green. And all we're going to do is just mix it together, and then we're going to twist our bristles to get a nice point on our brush. And then what we're looking to do is just almost like touch it in a little kind of random way on those muscles. If it's a big muscle, focus on the top edge where the light would hit. If it's a small little muscle like the abs along the side here, like I'm doing, just make sure it's in the middle. That way you're going to get that natural highlight. It depends what you're going for. Obviously, all orc models are different, or green skin, you know, you might be painting a human green, doesn't matter. They are all different, so you might not have to do this step. But I do think it is worth doing, and, you know, once again, it's all about just making it that tabletop plus. I am just going to get a very fine brush as well, and then I'm going to go over to, I'm going to add a little bit more Ogryn Camo to our little mix, so it's an even brighter highlight. And I'm just going to paint in some of the more, I guess, defined areas. Like on his pecs here, oof, lovely. I'm just going to paint in those kind of muscle citations where he looks quite ripped, just to kind of give a little bit of a visual interest here. That's what we are left with. Again, it might be a little bit subtle, but as you can see, we've got a nice solid colour. Although we've got those really abnormally dark shades within the muscles, it doesn't look out of place. We've almost tricked the eye on how to kind of make it look kind of cool, if you will. So I've now stuck the head on, because the reason why I did this is because I wanted to paint the tongue. Paint the tongue first, then put the head on, otherwise it could be difficult to reach. And we're going to paint that lovely skin effect. So this again is a really easy kind of thing to do. It is again only 3 colours. I do have a big video on skin. Again, I will leave them all linked in the description below, or the pinned comment. I'll stick them in there or something. Because there's a lot that, you know, you can go through. I've been doing some tutorials on Iron Jaws for a couple of weeks now, and they all link together and are leading to this. The colours we're going to be using for the skin though are Bugmans Glow, Reikland Flesh Shade and Cadian Flesh Tone. Starting with Bugmans Glow, and although I have pushed my wet palette just out of view of my camera, I am using my wet palette to water this down. What we're looking for is from the top ridge of the nose and then round the mouth. They kind of have these kind of, I don't know, lip kind of esque type things. I don't think orcs have lips, but I'm just working my way round the outside of like the sides of the mouth, the bottom, you know, the top of the jaw and the top. It can be, I don't know, I don't think I'm explaining myself so well. This is what I've done, and that's exactly where we are with it. Next up, we are going to do Reikland Flesh Shade. Again, give your wash a really, really good kind of shake. However, if you don't and you end up with some shiny bits, it just looks like he's a bit snotty, which, you know, I kind of think sometimes works in its favour. I'm using a very fine brush this time to apply it. And again, from the ridge of the nose all the way down to his kind of top lip, his bottom lip, I'm just going to make sure that we've got the shade settling in, just so that dark Reikland, you know, red shade mixes with the dark green and it becomes quite a natural blend. And then it's just over to Cadian Flesh Tone, where we're going to touch in things like the ridges of the nose, where his piltrum would be, you know, the ridges on his lips where he looks quite snivelly. You could go higher up with this or lower if you wanted to. I find about here gives quite a cool look and emphasizes that kind of pig, I guess, esque look that I see when I see Iron Jaws. That's what we are left with. Again, it's easy to do. It seems like there's a lot of steps, and I know it seems like I've been rambling, but it is really easy to do, and it's easy to kind of just, with the addition of some extra steps, push like a good model to a really exceptional model. And I think if you're someone that wants to develop, or you're a new painter that has the patience to do an extra couple of steps just every time, this is going to take, you know, your tabletop to tabletop plus to a really, really good standard. So, you know, do try it out. Let me know in the comments below actually if you are going to try this method, or if you've got something a little bit different. Obviously I like a bright orc, some people like a darker orc and stuff like that. I'll try and suggest some alternative schemes in the comments below, but I as you can see here, I do mine all similar. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish the last few bits on this guy. We'll put him on the spinny thing and we'll just have a little look at how he turned out. And here is my completed orc. I think he's turned out really, really cool. I like the little dinks and that in the armor. I like the rusted metal. I think the skin pops out beautifully, and straight away your eye is drawn to the face and the lighter skin around it. And I just think it almost tells a little bit of a story, and I really, really like that. These brutes are fantastic models to work on, and I've had an absolute blast with them. Obviously, we've now got this lovely tabletop plus looking model here, and you know, he's ready for a good scrap, and he's going to look absolutely fantastic on the tabletop doing it. Again, I will leave all the videos using the armor, the metal, the bases in the pinned comment below, the top pinned comment. Please do like and subscribe, really does help me out. And that is it from me in this one. I will see you all next time. God bless and take care.